This is a tutorial inspired by Michael Vincente, who did a little tutorial over on Zbrush Central. This brush you're seeing here is one that he created. He showed several brushes that he did, but didn't really go into the use of them and how you would actually put them together to make a realistic rock asset. Now this brush was created by snapshotting the depth of an actual sculpted detail and then using that as the drag rectangle function on a brush so that we can drag and place this now wherever we want on our model. So using the drag dot, you can see it just drags it, and then the size of the brush affects the size of the artifact, in this case our crack. Now if I change from drag dot to the scatter and make it nice large area, you can see it scatters the detail over the entire area of the brush. The other stroke type we have is dots. And again, now this will actually place them depending on the spacing that you set in the stroke settings. The other one is drag rectangle, which is the one we started with, where you drag it and it allows you to place and rotate them on a one-by-one basis. Another brush I created, this one is just using the same type of idea, but this is actually a texture or an alpha that was grabbed from a real photograph of sort of layered rock. So this will give you a nice streaking texture. Another one I have, again from a real photograph, is one of a more standard sort of cracked rock. So again, giving us a nice level. I'm not trying to make too realistic a rock, so I'm actually using them on quite low Z intensities. And this one here again is, you could create this using the noise function, but this to get you know that is an actual real rock detail. So I'll take us into shadow box and clear the mask, which will clear our object. Now switching to the standard brush and then alt painting in order to just paint with a mask, and then whatever we paint as the mask will become a 3D object. So I'm just painting the letter A here, just as an example. And seeing it from the side, you can see the mask and you can see how thick it is. I'll switch the mask tool to a mask, a rectangle, and then drawing on the side here just to make my A a little bit thicker. There we have it. So I'll turn off shadow box. Now I'm going to go in and just add a polish. So I'm just going to go into deformation and polish just to smooth that up a little bit, and then using the keyboard shortcut, and then going to subdivide it several times to about 1.5 million polygons. Using the clay brush, I'm just going to add detail. Now bearing in mind this is a real-time video, it's not sped up, so this is a real down and dirty quick paint job. It's not really intended to be a quality finish, it's just meant to give you an idea of how to use the different brushes to achieve certain types of surface. So all I'm doing is adding in a bit of undulation with the clay tool, building up some forms that I will detail out a little bit with the various hard surface brushes, such as hard polish, trim dynamic or trim adaptive, just to get some nice shapes. And then we're going to paint over the whole thing, or make the whole thing a bit more rocky by using the brushes we've just looked at. So I'm just filling out some forms, breaking the edges and so forth. I'm only worrying about the bits we're going to see. I'm not bothered with the back face. I mean, it's possible that the final asset might rotate, so you'd obviously do the whole thing. So I'll switch to hard polish now. I'm pressing on hard with the stylus. I'm just going to adjust the focal shift so it allows me to get into tighter corners that way, and then just get in and start making them be some hard edges. Polishing on one side and then polishing on the other will give us some nice sort of flint-like corners. Okay, this is using Michael Vincete's crack brush, which is similar to the dam standard, except it gives a harder edge. So again, this is looking a little bit out of place here. It's pressure sensitive, so you can make the cracks go nice and thin. So yeah, it's a little bit out of place, but as I say, not trying to do a final asset here, just trying to show that you can use the cracks. So using the polish brushes again now to sharpen up these details. Okay, some sharp, again, flint-like edges. Just working over the surface of the model. Probably spending more time than I needed to for the purpose of an example. Okay, in a second you're going to see, because I've forgotten to change the focal shift back, when I start doing it large on the flat areas, you'll see it actually makes some quite nasty circular indents in there. But again, these are sort of things that you would fix up if you're spending more than 9 minutes making an asset. Okay, so here you're going to see those weird circular impressions now. There you go. I'll try and smooth those out. It's not working so well, so I'll probably go in with just a standard polish brush, which is just the same as the hard polish, it's just not as aggressive. Just go in and fix out some of these areas. Okay. So, now to use some of these brushes. So, I'm going to go in with Trim Adaptive. Now this Trim Adaptive trims depending on the angle you're looking at it from the screen. There we go, giving that edge. But I think really, and that gives you an idea there, I think really what I want to do is use the Trim Adaptive. Sorry, the one I used before was Trim Dynamic. This one is Trim Adaptive, and this adapts to the surface underneath the brush. So it will basically generally follow the surface of the model, but trim into it. So again, it's like an aggressive version of the hard polish. And this will just give us some really good sharp edges where we need them, to give us that sort of rocky feel. Okay, that's the general shape. I'm not entirely happy with it, but it'll do for now. I'm going to go to the crack brush that was demonstrated by Michael Vincetti, but this one I've created myself. So just dragging in these cracks. Probably could have done with that actually being at a greater Z intensity, but again, for the purposes of showing you how to put these things together, it's adequate for our demonstration purposes. And again, probably overdoing it with how many of these I actually need to use. And I wouldn't do it quite as aggressively for a final asset. Okay, so there's some cracks in our rocks, but another one up here. Okay, I'm just going to change the material so it's not quite so shiny, so it looks a bit more rock-like. Okay, going to change now to the striated rock. There's a word for you. And just using the drag rectangle, dragging out and keeping the lines all roughly in the same direction. And because I've blended this nicely, it'll overlap without really any obvious overlap to it. And keeping the Z intensity quite low so it doesn't actually make too much noise. We want this particular asset we're trying to create here, it's got to be readable as a letter A. So if you add too much detail, too much aggressive detail to the actual letter, you'll be looking at the detail and you won't notice the silhouette. So I'm wanting it to suggest rock, but I'm also wanting it to be instantly readable. Okay, so now I'm going to go in using that crack brush again from Michael Vincetti, or Vincenti. If you want to see his tutorial, look on Zbrush Central. I believe he goes under the name of Orb, O-R-B. If you do a search for posts by him, you'll see some of his rather nice environment work. As I say, while he explains how to create these brushes, this is just really to give you an idea of how you would actually put them together. And obviously the style you're using, what you're going for, depends on a job by job basis. Okay, so now it's going to do a render, and there we have it. We'll look more at painting it in another tutorial.